Welcome to the Talk and Chatter experience powered by Gasoline Alley Harley Davidson. Today's guest is Freestyle Stunt Rider Damien Kennedy. Welcome, mate.
Thank you.
Who's Damien Kennedy?
I was dreading this question. Just sort of like a country-raised boy from the border region of Ireland. Nothing really too special. Didn't get into motorbikes till I was really properly till I was 21, riding on the road, and haven't really got off them since, between road riding and track riding and some trials, and freestyle stunt riding has been the main sport.
Why did you take so long to get into it, for one thing? And 21, you must have been a bit of a nutter when you first went out to it.
None of my family were into motorbikes.
Wow.
My father had an XT250 years ago, but never really. My parents would have been fairly anti motorbikes, and then pretty much when we had maybe one or two small motocrossers, 125s back when we were young, but we were always working. We were always working on the farm. My father had a supermarket, so spent most time in that. And then football pretty much took over, Gaelic football, took over the majority of the time. And then when I came to 20, I started, I played music for a long time. So I played in a rock band from when I was 17 to 21. And that brought us around the region around home, playing in nightclubs and bars, and met a few guys through the bike scene. We started doing, started playing gigs for bike rallies. So every club would have their annual rally, and we go down and play for them and drink with them afterwards and have a good time. And that's what sort of introduced me to the motorbike scene. And then the big thing back at home was there was predominantly only one insurance company that you could insure your bikes through, and the money was colossal. So you either didn't ride a bike, or you got a 1000cc and you didn't insure it and you didn't stop. So when I turned 20, another company came onto the market, and they drove the price down. So I got my first bike was a CBR 250, an MC22, and I was able to afford to get on the road then and get my license, and that's what kind of got me out and got me around in the scene.
I wonder how many CBR 250 MC22s are sold in the world. I reckon just about everyone you know has owned one, or two, or three.
MC19 and MC22, and they fetched like a clean one fetched really good money back in the day,
wow.
and probably even more so now. But they were awesome. I think they revved out to 19,500 RPM. It sounded like a 600 coming down the road. And
they screamed.
Yeah, I went all over the country to bike rallies and that, and it was awesome. It was a really good introduction, and you couldn't get yourself into too much trouble with it. It topped out at maybe 105 mile an hour. So when you're going around with guys with 918 Fireblades that they're doing 140 mile an hour, it's at least it kind of pulls you back a bit.
It brings it back a bit. What's the bike scene like over there? Obviously, there's a fair street racing history.
Yep.
What is the scene like over there?
Back then when I started, it was pretty good. There was a lot of guys out in bikes. Where we're from, the border region of Northern and Southern Ireland, there was a big street fighter scene. So a lot of guys would have had 918 Fireblades, older GSXRs, just all the fairings off, straight bars. It was really good back then. There was no really law onto bikes. It's so different here. You could go out, every time you went out, it was you were entering into Isle of Man races. The road was your racetrack. And
really?
Yeah. And cars were used to it. When there could be 10 riders out, and you'd be a line of cars, and you'd just be in, out, in, out, in, out, and you would only have small, the roads aren't the same as here. It's small country roads and stuff. But yeah, you are safer going faster, I believe. Yeah. Especially getting around cars anyway. But yeah, the cops didn't really seem to annoy us that much up around that region. The cars were all used to it, which sort of goes on to later with the stunt biking, which probably painted us in a different light, because there was a lot of road wheeling back in the day. That's what everyone wanted to do, was who could carry the furthest distance on a road bike on the back wheel. But it was probably a baptism of fire when I got out onto the bikes at home. So
how did you learn to wheelie and stuff? Was that obviously, did you start on the 250?
Tried to on the 250.
Say tough work.
Yeah, it didn't really work too well. The next bike, I probably rode the 250 for maybe a year, and then I upgraded to an SV650.
Yep.
And that's probably when I started learning how to slip the clutch and how to balance wheelie and use the back brake and stuff like that. So had one or two crashes on that, nothing too major. Then would have went on to a 954 Fireblade, Street Fighter 1, and that had I think it was a 54 tooth sprocket on the back.
Nice. It's ready.
Yeah, it's ready to go. Yeah, so pretty much on the roads. We go out and I actually think the wheeling on the roads sort of tamed us down a bit, because instead of going absolutely 100% everywhere as fast as you could around corners, you'd come to a corner and you'd slow down because you know there'd be a straight after it, and you'd want to try and wheelie the straight. So it looks more dangerous, but it's I think it was probably it tamed us down a bit on the road at that stage.
Saved you on the corners a little bit.
Yeah.
Those like 2002, 2003 was the 954 Fireblade.
Yes.
They're a great motorcycle.
They're awesome.
Yeah.
The 929 and the 954 was brilliant. Yeah.
And I'm guessing that's sort of why, like internationally, you see a lot of stunt riders having those era bikes, like the 929, 954, 636 or ZX6 is pretty popular as well.
Yeah, the F4i, the first of the fuel injected 600s. Yeah. For road stuff, the old 918 Fireblade, the Carby Fireblade, was a really, really smooth bike.
Right.
I think I have one mate that used to try, and he kitted out for stunt riding, but it was pretty difficult on it. But yeah, the 929, once he went to the injection, was really nice, really smooth. It didn't. The 954 didn't last too long with me. I think I blew 2 gears in the gearbox within 3 weeks.
Really?
Not half of my doing, but the guy that had it before had given it a good life. But but yeah, they were awesome bike. And then I went from that onto a Supermoto, a Husqvarna 570.
Yeah, nice.
Which was better again. It was just a completely different ball game of road riding. Just so much more speed in the corners, so much more lean to what I was used to, and it was really good.
You couldn't stop wheel standing one of those.
Yeah, they're pretty good for it.
Pretty handy. Yep.
Yeah. It gave me a lot of grief though. It gave me a lot of mechanical issues that nobody could really figure out.
Is that right?
Yeah. They used to have an overheating problem, I think, with the crankcase, but the magnet inside the stator, the glue used to come loose on it, or it used to melt with the heat, and then it'd slip round and it wouldn't be firing on the right time. So I think I got stranded at a rally in Donegal, which would have been maybe a 2.5 hour drive from home.
Yep.
Not big in the Australian terms, but it was well away from home back there. And luckily we had some guys in a small caddy, I think, so we tried to push it down the road for maybe half an hour, and then launched it into the caddy and brought it home and sat there for a long time trying to figure it out.
I reckon I had a very similar issue. I had a 520 EXC back in the same time, fairly similar pattern, and I don't know how many times I whipped the stator off that damn thing.
Yeah.
It's just having something you could never diagnose.
Yeah.
You know,
and plus because they're kickstart, you've got like that half a second to try and diagnose it. Like, at least if you had electric start, you could crank it over and see what's going on. But
not with that.
No.
Yeah, very frustrating.
Yeah.
Cool bikes though.
Yeah.
Certainly a good era for that sort of package of bike. You know.
Yeah.
What was the rally scene like over there?
The bike rallies, pretty good back at the start. When I started out in bikes and when I was playing music for them, it was really good. There was always a big following. Like, the normal scenario would have been maybe 3 bands, so people would start arriving from like 5-6 o'clock, and then you'd have a small local band on. Then we'd probably be the middle band or the headline band. But it was really good. Like, great enthusiasm from the bikers. We always got a great scene. Majority of the rallies were MCC clubs, and that's I ended up in an MCC club for a few years after when I started on bikes. But we done a few MC rallies as well, and we always went down really well, and they always looked after us. I think because I was doing the organising, like the managing of the band as well, it sort of helped me get an inside track with them. So it was really good. It sort of faded out maybe probably in 2004 14, 15, 16, something
Really?
like that. It's pretty dead now.
Wow.
But probably the cops have cracked down a lot more. There's a lot more. There's zero tolerance on drink driving now, and so like that would have been a lot of the issues back then.
Yep.
Yeah.
How internationally, how times change, hey?
Yeah,
Like
definitely.
you know, you hear of some other stories in Australia of long before 2004, but some pretty crazy times internationally.
Yeah, and it has to change. Like, it can't.
Got to evolve.
It can't go on that way. Like, if everything's getting bigger, everything's getting more public. There's more coverage worldwide. Like, news travels in a second now. Like, it's not really like it was. So.
And when did you think that you'd be able to do this as a like as a hobby, career, passion? When did you think you'd be able to do this more?
It was always an interest of mine since wheeling on the road. Like, but I got a trials bike, and then started pretty much just messing around our house and on our farm and stuff, and that gave me a really good base for throttle, brake, and clutch control.
Mm-hmm.
And the trials bike, you can use them anywhere. You need 5 meter square, and you can have a good time on them. So probably wasn't really into the stunt scene much at that stage, or I didn't really know about it until we went to a stunt practice day and seen some of the other riders from around Ireland. There wasn't that many, but some of them were doing circle wheelies and podiums and high chairs and stuff like that, and hadn't really seen that sort of stuff. So that sort of got us into it, and then we had probably like a year and a half or 2 years of competitions in Mondello Park in Dublin, and seen some of the English riders, and just that fueled the fire, and started to go from there. Built my first ZX6, and probably got a lot of. There was no one really around home apart from maybe one guy that was doing this, that was pushing towards it, and probably got a fair bit of stick that it's not really. You're better off doing track racing or something like that, or the road racing scene would have been pretty big. But I got a lot of enjoyment out of it, and I didn't mind pumping money into a bike that I was crashing into the ground 20, 30 times a day, because I was getting out on the bike for 4 hours, 5 hours, like during the week, and a big day on the weekend. Like, so as long as we had somewhere local to go, we were pretty lucky. Like, we had a small area close, that we could practice at, and we didn't have to drive 3 hours to a racetrack once a month. Like, so that kind of was the nail in the coffin, that it's not feasible for me to do track riding, or because it's so sparse and you're dependent on the weather a lot. So you might wait a month to do a track day, and then it's washed out. So, but as a like a mainline hobby, probably when we started organising our first competitions. So whenever the competitions in Mondello finished up, we had a bit of a void, and I took over and set up the Irish Freestyle Stunt Series. So that was we just had to go and said there's an opportunity. So we got our kind of branding together and approached a lot of different sort of motorsport shows. So this was just around the time, I don't know if you follow international drifting, but the Irish Drift Championship, the IDC, had just been taken over by Dave Egan, who has ran it as probably one of the most successful drift championships in the world up until maybe last year. So he was just starting to take over from Pro Drift, and we got one of our shows or our competitions alongside there, which was good. It was a lot of exposure, I suppose. And then, our first year we ran 4 competitions, 3 of them alongside other motorsport shows, and one of them we housed ourselves in our hometown. And that's kind of where we brought I was saying about the stigma around home about bikes wheeling on the road. That sort of bringing that show to our hometown gave us a lot of good grounding with people, like where we brought it into a controlled environment, had an arena of hay bales and then another space and then crowd control barriers out around it, and we had bouncy castles and food vans and stuff like that, and basically brought young people, old people, bikers, people who have no relevance to it in, and they could see that this isn't just like a hoonigan sport. It's they could see how hard you were pushing, how much you had to train, how on the limit you were. Like, so the first year there was a really good footing for us. We ended up getting a business that I had approached maybe the year before to use their yard as a practice spot didn't want a bar of it, and then the next year, no problem, straight in.
Really?
Yeah, it was really good. Yeah.
Wow.
So
is Ireland an open-minded place when it comes to things like this?
Yeah.
Like pretty accepting when it comes to that sort of event.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Like even the councils and stuff are a little bit more work with the councils to try and propose it, but yeah, it's pretty open-minded. I think it's probably a little bit more so than here, but it's not. It wouldn't be as known, I think, over here. But yeah, it's pretty good. There's still a hell of a lot of work to go in the background trying to get these shows or competitions or demos across the line. And insurance was the biggest thing with us. Like we probably spent 2.5 years before we really had the insurance thing nailed down, where we knew exactly what we wanted. Like every time we would run a competition, sometimes we'd go through a broker, and then there would be a long-winded chain of us to the broker, to the insurance company, to wherever, and then back down to the venue's insurance company.
Yep.
But yeah, it took us about 2.5 years before we ended up nailing down exactly what we wanted in terms of like limits of liability or letters and whatever like that. But every time, no matter like how early we done it, like we paid for the insurance for our local show 3 months before the event, and it still ran down to the day where we didn't know if we had it or not.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Wow. What, just the back and forth?
The back and forth, and this was the 3rd year we ran the event in this venue, and the owner was a local business owner, and he was no problem as long as we cleaned up afterwards. But they had changed insurance company that year, and just the guy didn't like the sound of it, and he started a play on words. He wanted different letters of indemnity and stuff like that. He was wording it a different way, and it would come from him to the company, to us, to our broker, to our insurance company, and it could take a week before it travelled that way, and you just, time slips away. But yeah,
as an event organizer, that must be one of the hardest things, eh?
Definitely one of the most stressful. I think on the bigger events, trying to get that balance of keeping the riders happy and keeping the event organisers and the spectators happy. So there has to be a happy medium of like the riders for a competition want to go out and ride all day long. They don't want to be told when they have to do things. They don't want to stop riding. But you can't have 20 riders out having a practice in a show that has 37,000 people coming through in the weekend. You need to have a show for the spectators, and you need to have a good MC coordinating it. You need to have structure throughout the day where you have practice sessions, then you've got like freestyle sessions, you've got we used to run these games like Last Man Standing, where you could have 20 to 25 riders in the arena, and you'd all have to pull a wheelie.
Yep.
And it was the last person to keep it up. But if you fell off the bike, you had to leave the bike where it was. So like it was carnage. Like it was
cool.
Like people would be coming along. Some people couldn't turn circles. Then someone did hit someone else, and yeah, it was really good. The first year was awesome because we had a guy over from France, a professional rider, Guy, and he's unbelievable. He is an insane amount of control. And another Irish rider, Derek, was going around, and Guy came up behind him, and he was able to put his front wheel on Derek's shoulder while they're both in a wheelie, and just like tweak the handlebars and try and push him off. But yeah, it was awesome to watch. So that's
one of those moments that you sit back and go, like, how? How do you get to that point? How did you think of that?
Yeah, and having the pro riders over from Europe was a great pull for a show of that size. Like that was when we first done the Irish Motorbike and Scooter Show. Mm-hmm. So normally they would have a live action arena, and they get in like a pro rider from Ireland. Normally Matty Griffin used to have it for a long time, who's a BMW rider, and he'd probably do like 3 or 4 shows a day, half-hour shows, and then it'd be off in between that. So we ran full action, like full competition from Friday afternoon straight through till Sunday. So there was always something happening. So, and yeah, it was really good. It was constant entertainment, and it went down well. Yeah.
When you took it over, how did you find riders?
Because I'm one of the riders, I reckon I had a pretty good balance of both. I knew what they wanted and what I thought I did anyway. Try to make them happy, and probably the first year we just done our own small show, so it wasn't too bad. But I still wanted to make that spectacle, that show that people can come in and watch and be entertained, as opposed to like we used to practice in different spots and people would come down and watch, and that's good as well, but it's still not coordinated. It's not it's just a few guys practicing. So I think the riders probably after the first year probably took, when they seen what it could be, probably took to it pretty well. But it was always a developing thing. The judging was a big obstacle to overcome on how to judge it accurately. Like I talked to loads of different judges and riders from France and Poland and stuff, and probably took us maybe by the second, maybe the third year, we probably had a fairly good judging system nailed down. First year we just used what we had seen in England before, and it was so hard to judge. Like, you'd be watching every trick and trying to mark it on a sheet, and you end up looking at the paper more so than looking at the run. And as the sport evolved and you get more energetic riders who probably put 10 tricks into 5 seconds, it's you can't take your eyes off it. So
wow.
Yeah.
That's any sport that's judged on a stunt or a coordinated move is so subjective to, because you're watching it live. It's so hard. Like, say surfing. Yeah. You know, this surfer's done such and such turn. Is it better than when you're just watching it live? It's such a difficult. It's all subjective, isn't it?
All freestyle, I believe, is like that, and
freestyle, motocross, everything.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's always evolving and it's always changing. So what you gave a trick a 5 for last year, that's not a 5 next year, because the people have evolved into the next big trick. So if you're marking it out of 10, I actually had a good conversation with Julian Welch, who's a French pro rider for Triumph, and he gave me a good system where you average it out. So say, instead of you looking at your judging system is broken up into like wheelies, acros, stoppies, drifting and burnouts, and then you've got like aggressiveness and mistakes and crowd interaction, them sort of things. So if you can focus on one thing, one judge focuses on one area where you're just focused on wheelies, and you sit back and you say the run is 4 minutes, and you take like a minute of that and you watch. And you just go, right, that was that. And at the end of the minute, you go, right, out of 0 to 10, where do I think that is as a level? Or take it in 30-second bites, and then you give that an average out of 10. So it means that you're getting a feeling of the run, apart from looking at every individual trick, and you're getting a feeling of that 1 minute, and say that was absolutely awesome. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed watching that. So you give them like an 8 out of 10, and then you do it for the next minute and next minute and next minute, and then at the end you average that out, and that's what your score is. I don't know if it translates over to other sports, but
smart though.
Yeah, it means that you're constantly watching. You're not worried about, are you marking down the right area on the page, and if a page is too convoluted with spots to mark, it's pretty hard. And
you're not just going for like an overall. Like, your brain gets confused after whatever, but if you can just sit down, break it up, and then average it out, it does make sense.
Yeah. But that's probably the most, I think it's the fairest way I've seen. And it's the same in every freestyle sport. Like, it's no one's going to be happy with their results, or not everyone's going to be happy. And as long as you can justify it afterwards, and you haven't got judges that are overloaded, taking on too much, like, so.
Very true, very true. When did you start stunting? When was it? What year?
Probably, so I was 21, probably about 9 years ago now. So
9 years ago. Social media, like, I was just trying to get a gauge of it.
Yeah.
That must have, in a way, the sport had a peak a bit earlier than that, probably, I feel, as well, internationally.
Yeah.
But the social media thing, where you can see other riders around the world doing things, that's probably driven it a bit as a guide, hasn't it, as well? Definitely,
yeah. Like, before that, as I said, like, when I started on bikes, I never knew anything about this. I never seen any of the guys in the States. I don't really follow too many guys in the States now. I'd be more on the European side, but we never really seen it. I never heard of like Lee Bowers come over to the second competition I was ever at, and he's like, he not anymore, but he would have been UK top rider for last 8, 9, 10 years, something like that. And I had never heard of him until he came to Ireland, and
wow.
we was just watching him live, and I was like, holy fuck, like that's crazy, like.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely 2012, 2013, it started to pick up, and you would get more worldwide presence, I suppose. But like, I never used Instagram until coming to Australia, and I was very hesitant to go onto it.
It's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Now, how did you progress? What did you like? Just obviously time, but was it looking at other people, or just digging within and finding things, or how was it?
Yeah, like I used to do a lot of practice on my own back at the start, because there was only one other guy that used to ride, and he was a bit away, like, so. Just rode on my own for a long time, and probably took me a long time at the start. I think it took me a year to get my first circle. Whereas other guys come onto the scene and they jump in with others and might get it in a couple of months, or 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 8 months, whatever. But definitely the competitions were the biggest progression builder for me, because you go out and you watch the guys from Dublin and from down the south, and you see what they're doing, and you're like, oh yeah, I could do that, like, and I'm going to try that. So definitely in a weekend of competitions, you would have a lot of fun, and you would get a lot of good ideas for progression, and everyone was pretty open. Everyone was very supportive back at home, so they were all giving tips, and it was riding with guys way ahead, above your level was a big progression builder, I think.
Is like freestyle one of those sports where it is fairly well open? Like, people are pretty good amongst like each other, like sharing tips and stuff?
I'm definitely 100%. I've yet to come across definitely Ireland, Europe. 99% of the UK guys everyone's very, very down to earth and very, very open, and just wants to have a good time and progress the sport. Like even we had I think one of the years before we done the competition in Dublin, we had Stunt 13 come over from Poland, who's probably one of the most famous Polish riders worldwide. And then there's another Polish girl that lives in Wolverhampton in England with another mate of ours, Josh, who's a rider as well. So she was doing the backup with Stunt 13. I think they know each other from back in Poland. But he came over and he done this awesome show, and then he spent probably like an hour talking to my friend Derek and his son just about like the basic stuff, stuff that he probably gets asked all the time, but he still gave the guys the time of day to talk about the setup. And then he came out and practiced with us that night in a spot in Dublin, like, so. Wow. He's got such a high profile, but still just a modest guy at the back of it, and
zero ego.
No ego at all. I think that's probably pushed me off the States riders so much, because there was a lot of drama back in the day and a lot of egos and stuff like that. So that's probably why I don't follow that much of the scene over there. Mm-hmm. I think the European guys are never really got that much. Like I've ridden with a lot of professional guys that just want to have a bit of fun. That's
just
it.
Ride bikes.
Just ride bikes, and it doesn't matter what your level is. That's what I've been kind of trying to push to the guys here. There's a virtual competition coming up now.
A what?
A virtual stunt competition.
Okay.
First I've ended up first time I've ever participated in one, but I think it's a couple of guys from South America have set it up. But it was one of my mates back in the UK said, oh yeah, we should enter this, it'll be something to drive towards. You always want an end goal. Like if you've got a date and they always have like a 6 tricks, you're like, right, what can't I do now that would look cool that I can drive towards? So I was a lot of the guys here, when I've approached them about shows and the competitions, you're like, oh no, like I can't do this and I can't do this and I wouldn't be good enough for that. And it's like, it doesn't matter what your level is, as long as you're pushing your own boundaries. And even if you go out and you're in a field full of pro riders, you're going to feed off what they're doing, but you're also doing something that they're probably not able to do. Like a lot of the sort of newer riders are a lot better at acro stuff than say the older riders, because none of the older riders like doing the acro stuff. But they're always going to pick up something of you, and you're always going to pick up something of them. So I think it's it's always really good to ride with really good riders, and no matter how low level you think you are, it doesn't matter as long as you're pushing your own boundaries and trying new stuff and just not afraid to fall off, and that's
the biggest part.
That
the ground's pretty heavy.
It is, yeah. It doesn't get any softer.
It's a view that I think should be shared too, like across the stunt world, racing and everything. Like so many people miss out on opportunities to do things by thinking that they're not good enough to be able to do it.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
and you're only not good in your own eyes. Like you go out there and you mightn't be the fastest or the best. You might be able to do the best wheel stand, but over time you might get there. You might not, but at least you're enjoying it and doing it yourself.
And the more of these higher level or the more professional or more well-known people that can advocate for this, the better it becomes, because everyone's nervous going out. Nobody wants to go out in front of, like, even if it's 10 people at your local spot and do whatever you're doing, like do a little bunny hop. It's the same motocross. You want to be doing the biggest jump that you can, but like you just need to put them to the background and just do your own thing. And as long as you're progressing yourself, that's it. Because
that number one person will still respect you because you're out there.
If you go out and have a go, they'll still respect you. Yeah, definitely.
A lot more than what you would if you didn't.
Yes.
So having a trials bike, is that something that everybody should have as a motorcyclist? I
think so. I think they're unbelievable. I'm just after giving back a little a Beta 250 that a guy from work lent me for probably the last 6 months, and didn't get out on it as much as I would have liked, but I think they can teach so much, and so much base level control techniques that will transfer through to any motorbike skill.
For sure.
Yeah.
One of my best friends, he's got a couple of them in his backyard, and I didn't realise I was such a terrible rider until I went for a ride on a trials bike.
Yeah,
like it's so difficult.
They are a weird thing,
and you're so lazy. Yeah, because you want to sit down.
Yeah,
you know, you're like, oh man, I'm lazy.
Yeah.
You know, but good for skill though. Hey,
definitely. I done a few trials back at home. I done a couple of enduro races actually. And I think the trials bikes are awesome for that, because like coming up to a big log, you're much more able to get over on a trials bike than an enduro bike, I would think. But the fuel is the issue. I think I ran out on the last lap. But I done a couple of trials events. I had a mate back at home who was big into it and didn't have too many people to ride with. But I called him Johnny One Leg because his name was Johnny and he had one leg.
That makes sense.
So he had a bike accident back in the day. Like he's probably in his close to his 50s now. And he had a bike accident back in the day, and his left leg was pretty bashed up, and he probably spent about a year and a half in rehab trying to they kept telling him that it'll come back, and at the end of it he was like, nah, he said, I'm after wasting a year and a half, just chop it off. So chopped his leg off above the knee, I believe, maybe below, I'm not too sure, but then he got an aluminium leg. And the first I came across him was when I done an enduro race in Todd's Leap. First time I had a little gas 280. It was like a 96 model, and I'd never been on the dirt scene at all. I was totally unprepared. I came with a motorbike jacket, a big helmet, and a pair of textile trousers that I ripped off after like half a lap. But I remember I was trying to get up this hill, and I was stuck halfway up, and Johnny One Leg comes blazing by me on a KTM 2-stroke enduro, and he used to have like a spring attachment to the bottom of his fake foot that he would hit with the gears, and he was fast like on the enduros. And then when I got into trials, I started hanging about with him, and he's probably the most balanced man I've ever met in my life. He was unbelievable on a trials bike, and he reckoned if he had his leg back, he'd have to relearn everything again.
It'd be strange, hey?
Yeah. It was it was weird watching him, but and he had no fear. He was ballsy. He would take on these massive big hill climbs and drops that I'd be looking at going, nah, no way.
So how did his gear change work? Would he have a spring set up, or
I can't, on the trials bike I think he just had it loose that he could pull it. Like he had a little flat aluminium plate on the bottom of his leg that was like his boot, and he used to click it into gear that way. But I believe on the enduro he had some sort of a spring setup. I'm not too sure, but
wow.
Yeah, but he's done track riding as well, like, and he got like a little quick shifter set up, and yeah, he just lives for motorbikes.
That's cool.
Yeah,
it's really cool to see people keep coming back and back and back into it. Eh?
But he brought us to a couple of competitions, and when you're saying about like the trials bikes being so difficult, like I'd be going around a tree and you'd be dabbing your foot every 2 seconds, and then you'd see this little 8-year-old and on the same size bike as you and just round as easy as pie. And it's a real good skill set for kids, I think. Like
sure.
As soon as they can walk, I'd be putting them on a bike.
I think it's a foundation. I think it's something that if you want to do anything towards motorcycling, it'd be a great thing to just have as a foundation.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Even cycling as well. Like it's any sort of bike, and like you see the kids now on balance bikes, like when they're maybe 10 months, 12 months, 14 months. Yeah, they're awesome. Like and it teaches them good. I suppose I don't know what you call it. Resilience skills, because like they crash, they have to pick themselves back up again, back on, and away you go. Like they're knocking the babiness out of them, I think is
a good thing. It's just changed. I think like kids now have the best toys ever. You know, like if they want to pursue a career in a sport, it is until a certain age where it gets crazy expensive. But it is so easy to go and you know, those first few years, go out and get balance bikes and things like that. And you know, once you start to learn balance, it should be with you for life. I feel.
I think so, yeah. And that's one thing about Australia, like the facilities and the outlets that you have here is leaps and bounds across what like we would have known back at home. Oh, so much. Like even like every suburb has a really nice park and a barbecue and a pump track or something like that. And you've got like your the likes of the Sleeman complex, where you've got like them little the pump tracks for the bikes, or the bigger scale ones, and skate parks. Like to get a skate park at home, like you would have to petition to the council for years. It's it's getting a bit better now, but it's insurance, I suppose, as well. It's just people haven't got that mentality yet. It's still so much geared around football, around Gaelic. Like every club will have a massive amount of money pumped into their football grounds and their teams and stuff like that. But it's starting to come around a bit now, like where they look outside the box a bit, but nowhere near what you have here. Like there's so many outlets here. Plus you've got the weather as well, so it's good.
So what's it like growing up in Ireland?
Yeah, it's I enjoyed it. Like as I said, we grew up on a farm, not a massive farm in Australian terms, probably like 80 acres. So would have spent a lot of time when I was younger, kicked out of the house in the morning and told not to come back until it was dark. So we used to play around the farm, used to help my father bring in sheep and cattle and whatever like that. And then he had a supermarket, so we started properly working relatively early, probably like 12, 13 years of age, in the supermarket. But yeah, it was that was a pretty good base for us, I think. It was good growing up. The music scene was pretty good when we got into it. It was on the downturn, but it was thriving for that first 4 years that we were playing. So we were flat out, like, so. Yeah, it was good. Yeah.
I guess having the farm, that's what's given you the work ethic to do. Like you've got a full-time job now.
Yep.
You run another business doing the stunting.
Yeah.
I guess that's probably giving you the grounding for that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely given the drive, and I think the responsibility of working in the supermarket. When we were younger, like I started as a butcher at 13, and you would have to do every Sunday because that's when the butchers would be off. So you work in your evenings when you come home from school, and then probably a decent day on a Saturday, and then do a Sunday where my father would probably be filling in, and myself in the butchery. But yeah, it definitely gave us a good grinding. What
made you come to Australia?
We've probably been trying to come for about 5 years. We're here 4 years now, so we got here in 2017, early 2017. So like Ireland is a country of migrants. Every generation picks a country and they all go there. Yep. So like back in like my grandparents' generation, it would have been England. Back in my parents' generation, would have been the States. Our generation is Australia, and to a lesser extent Canada. So like probably there's a lot of people gone home now, but maybe say 15 years ago it would have started just everyone was going to Australia. Probably maybe 10 years ago, probably I'd say like 60% of our sort of age group would have been over here, plus 10 years maybe. But it was the place to go. And when I came out of college or uni, I had planned to go, and the guy I started doing the industrial automation with, he sort of held a job off for me while I was finishing uni for probably about 6 months, but he wanted 4 or 5 years kind of loyalty after that. So held off for that and started working with him. And then my partner Orla, we were ready to go, and then she had to finish college and that sort of stuff. And then a few things come up in the time being, but we eventually made the move in 2016. And I've got 2 brothers here as well, so they gave me a good insight into what the best route for the visa was. Yep. So a lot of people would just come on and work on holiday and then try and get a sponsorship and do your probably 2 to 4 year sponsorship and then try and get your residency. But a lot of hassle comes with that, and a lot of loopholes that can catch you out. So we done a migration visa from home. So on the back of the engineering, I was able to get that accredited over here. Yep. And do all the exam or the tests and whatever like that to get a migration visa for the 2 of us. So once we landed, we had a residency.
Ready to go.
Ready to go. It was an investment from home. Like it cost us a bit, but it would have cost us more if we had came here and then done the residency. Or
did that process of the few years.
Yep. And probably would have been harder, I think, because everything's changing. It changes from year to year, and like now with COVID, like you wouldn't know what would happen. So I wanted the cleanest way to get a long-term residency.
Yep.
So
gives you the security of being here full time.
Yeah.
What got you into industrial automation?
I always had a bit of an interest in engineering. Always liked to make stuff. Even as a kid, like we used to do some stock car racing back when I was younger, myself and my brother, and we always had like welders and grinders and that sort of stuff. And being on a farm, like you kind of had to fix stuff as well. So
that's part of it, eh?
Yeah. But it seemed like the cleanest way for me to go through. Like I'm not the most academic of people. Like I'd rather be doing stuff with my hands than learning maths and stuff like that. But mechanical engineering, my older brother that's lives in Brisbane, he tried it and pulled out after a year, and then went into like industrial design.
Right.
So I think it was going to be too in depth for me, but the industrial automation seemed to be a good mix of say like electrical and programming and mechanical and stuff like that. And it was I really enjoyed it. Yeah. So
and that's what you do now, like that's your
so it went from industrial automation to manufacturing and design engineering.
Yep. And
when I come over here, that's what I do now is design engineering, but it was a bit of a process to get into that. Like I thought it would have been a lot easier arriving in Australia to jump into a job. Yep. But I think we done some traveling on the way over, so we left in November 16 and stopped in Southeast Asia for 3 months and toured around Thailand, Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia. Bought a little motorbike in Vietnam and drove around the place.
Nice.
Tried to go north to south, and then we hit monsoons in the centre, so we sold it and then busted by there.
That slows things down pretty quick.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Especially when you've got no way of drying things over there. It's hard.
Yep.
But I came over to Australia and started off, I think maybe 3 or 4 days after I arrived, I was steel fixing on a bridge in Jimboomba, and done that for a little while, and then I was taking days off from that to knock on doors to get engineering jobs, and then taking more days off to go for interviews, and then I'd lose the steel fixing job. So then I got into fabrication. So I would have left design and the automation back at home and done fabrication for about 2 years. So like effluent treatment plants, stainless steel pipe work, that sort of stuff.
Yep.
So still kind of trying to get both sides of the spectrum with the design and the hands-on experience. So that's definitely the best thing I've done so far, and it's stood to me a lot over here. So I done boiler making and sheet metal kind of fabrication for probably a year and a bit over here, and then jumped into a hot rod shop down in Meadowbrook, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, so you must have went to Ozrods, yeah?
Ozrods, yeah. Worked for Graham, not for a massive amount of time, probably about 6-8 months. And it was really, really cool.
Was that a learning curve? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. My car mechanical knowledge would be pretty slim. Like I can rebuild a bike in a day if you want, like, but pull a car apart, and I'm pretty bad on that. But it was definitely a learning curve, and they do some really sick stuff down there, like even like setting up brand new chassis and diffs and stuff like that. So I kind of went in to do some exhaust work. So got to do build a full exhaust system for a V8 Pajero, which is built for a film back in the day. That was good. And then done some chassis work with them, some panel work, body work, which isn't really my sort of thing. I'm not a fan of like light gauge stuff, but not light gauge, but panel work isn't something I'm
that final finish sort of work.
Yeah. And plus, like, a lot of it is just tack work and grinding it all down, which when I was fabricating at home, like doing the pipe work, I had a real interest in like high-end TIG skills, TIG welding. So like walking a cup and pipe work and stuff like that. I always wanted to get stuff really schmick. Yeah. So like grinding down a weld to me is torture.
Yeah.
So yeah. Wow. But it was good, yeah.
And then obviously you've ended up where you are now.
Yeah.
Now you got a bit of a story to get there. What was it?
Yeah, so I actually had started another job in between Ozrods with another Irish company down in Meadowbrook, and it sort of was really slow when I went in, so I started asking around, and I got given the company I work for now, I got given the boss's number, and so I rang him up and told him what I'd done, and again the hands-on stuff plus the engineering sort of stood, and that's what kind of probably grasped him on the phone. And he was like, yeah, when can you come in for an interview? And I was like, now, let's go. So he was like, right, give me the address, and so I got changed and grabbed my resume and was jumping in the car, and he rings me up and he says, can you or have you left yet? And I said, yeah, I'm just in the car about to head in now. He goes, right, change your plan. I want you to go to Brisbane Airport. You're going to meet a guy at the gate, and you're going to go into a meeting with Qantas Catering. So this is at the domestic airport. And I was like, okay, no problem. So with the engineer or the automation, like it was pretty much me and the boss. So it was a one-man band. So I'm used to being thrown in the deep end in situations. So I landed to the airport and met one of the main guys at the gate. He gave me a shirt, and I landed into a meeting with the head of the maintenance engineering for Qantas Catering and a couple other guys. One guy for our company who I hadn't met before, but I should have known, I suppose, been thrown into a meeting. Yep. And that was fine. He told me on the phone, he said, I don't want you to do anything, just go in and see how you get on. And so that was fine. But I think there was maybe 3 projects going on, and I had done a lot of refrigeration, large scale ammonia refrigeration at home. And there was a refrigeration aspect of this project which I didn't know. And about 20 minutes into the interview or into the meeting, the maintenance manager turns around to me and goes, so you must be the fridge engineer? And I was like, yep, that's me. Oh. So probably the next half an hour was solely directed at me, and only it was an area I had a bit of experience in. I was able to mumble my way through it.
How lucky is that?
Yeah, it was good, yeah.
So that was basically your interview?
Yeah, I think so. I actually went in probably 2 days later for an interview and then started the following day. Yeah. And to this day, I still don't know what the plan was. Throw me into that. Like, I've never really heard. But it's I've heard it's been done to a lot of people, something similar. But it's probably a good way to gauge your character, I'd imagine.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, to see how you obviously deal with customers for one thing, and then obviously technical knowledge goes pretty quick. Yeah. You'll find out pretty quick when they're in a situation like that, I guess.
Yeah. It's good to have the gift of the gab, I suppose, as well.
For sure. That's huge. That'd be for someone that wouldn't has trouble facing new people. Mm-hmm. Gee, that would be hard. Hey, like you obviously don't have any issue with that. Yeah. But people there's a lot of people out there that would just I can't talk to somebody new without knowing all
without
this,
being prepped and knowing exactly what's going to be on the agenda and stuff like that. But.
And especially, this is sort of my background of work as well, engineering wise. Not most, a lot of engineers aren't forward-facing people as well.
No.
Well. So that'd be a difficult thing for a lot of people. So.
I find some of the like really, really, really good ones are the ones that probably lack in the social skills or the people skills. Not lacking them, but wouldn't be as outgoing and stuff like that, or come across as blunt or something like that. But
can work out the most incredible work, but socially it's a different thing, and it's just a very incredible technical ability. You know?
Well, that's why we've got sales guys.
Yeah, that's why they're there.
They butter them up and then we figure it out.
Come in with the rest for sure. So that gets us to Australia. In between, you've done a little bit of stuff overseas and that too, the stunts as well. Yeah.
In
like Poland and that.
Yeah. So I went to I started fabricating in. Done that for about 2 years, and then we knew we were going to move to Australia. We kind of had nailed it down that we were going in the end of 2016, and I was like, there was a hell of a lot of stuff that I hadn't done in the stunt scene back then. So we used to go over to England once a year and do Santa Pod for the British Stunt Championship, and went to London for SBF, done a competition outside Wembley there, and I ran the Irish scene. And actually after the first Irish motorbike and scooter show, I got offered a job to run SBF at Wembley the following year. So that's sponsored by Ace Cafe in London. And really, really good opportunity. The girl that runs the Irish motorbike and scooter show, Ruth, she was awesome. She was so helpful for contacts, and we kind of clicked pretty well on the organisation side of stuff. Like there's probably like 6 months of background organisation on that show, but I had just started a new job and couldn't really devote the time that was needed to do it, and to do it well. And plus, it being in London, you'd have to do it all remotely up until a few weeks before. So then we knew we were coming in 2016. So I was like, there's loads of stuff I haven't done. So I said, right, I'm going to quit my job in May, and I'm going to head to Europe, and I'm going to try and do as many competitions and ride with as many high level riders as I can, and just see if I can progress myself a bit. So Orla, who's my partner, is always pretty supportive of these things, even how stupid they are. Like, and you're planning to migrate to a different country, you need to save all your money, and then I go off on a whim to Europe for 3 months to ride my bike and stuff like that. But so bought a van and kitted it out with a bed above the bike and stuff like that. And Ruth from the Irish Motorbike and Scooter Show gave me a bit of sponsorship to drum up riders from Europe to come over for the next show, which would have been the year after I went over. And headed off to England to our friends in Wolverhampton, and stayed with them and had a bit of a ride. So that was Josh and Monty who rode with Stunter 13 at the Polish guy. And then headed to France and went and met Guy and Nico, who would have came to Ireland for the first competition that we done in the RDS, the Irish Motorbike and Scooter Show. And then basically just Facebooked random people in different countries that were in the same scene to go and ride with them. So hit up a couple of our team in Belgium called Twisted Freestyle, and just looked them up on Facebook and said, oh yeah, I'm thinking about going to Europe and thinking about going to Belgium. Said, what's the go and having a ride and stuff. And guy Kim Van Hoek got back to me, and he was like, yeah mate, come on up here, and we've got a big spot, you can stay with us, you can ride, whatever like that. And so went to France and stayed with the guys for probably like a week, and two of them haven't got much English at all, so it was mainly Google Translate between it and having a few beers and stuff like that. But cool. Then drove up to Belgium, and had a bit of an ordeal on the way up, because I blew the turbo in my van probably 2 months before going, and I had to put a reconditioned turbo in, and it was just giving me all kinds of dramas. Like,
what van? Ford Transit?
No, Citroen Relay.
Okay. Yep.
Would have always driven Ford Transits, and then I wanted something a bit bigger because I wanted to put the bed above the bike. So I built like this hinged bed that I would hinge it up off the wall and strap it to the roof, and then I'd run the bike in, and then I would drop it in, and the bed would sit just pretty much on the bars, and it gave me enough room that I could get into the bed, and when I turned over at night I could just like rub my shoulder off the ceiling. So
perfect.
But it was good, it was cozy.
Yep.
And So arrived into Brussels and hit Kim up, and then went out to his spot, and ended up he put me up for a week in his house, and it was awesome. I'd never experienced such hospitality in my life.
Really?
Like brought us out to ride every day, brought us to see the city, brought us we went up to a place called Lommel, which is just in North Belgium, and it's this brand new industrial area on the side of a canal, which leads obviously out to the sea, and they use that as a port, but there's no factories on it, so it's probably like a kilometre of just a concrete pad, and it's unbelievable. It's probably like one of the best stunt spots I've been in. And met a lot of guys there, some German guys and some Polish guys, and then headed off to the first competition was a few days later, so I headed to Poland to do the first round of the Polish Stunt Cup. Again, didn't know anyone there, messaged the organizer. I actually knew one guy, Marcin Glowacki is his name. He came over to Ireland as well, and we'd have a lot of sort of Polish friends through the Polish guys we rode with in Dublin, so they would have stunted back in Poland and migrated over to Ireland, and we would have had some good connections there, and arrived to the Polish Stunt Cup, and stayed with the organizer for probably, it was only supposed to be a couple of days, and I ended up busting my engine in the qualification run, or just after the qualification run in the practice. So I was doing a podium, which is I was doing a circle wheelie with one foot across the bar, and I high-sided the bike, so pretty much I was stuck in that position across the bar, and it just pancaked on the ground, and the cage pretty much put pressure on the engine and bust the side of the engine.
Split the case.
Split the case straight through to the journals. That was the third engine. I'd done it back at home probably 8 months before that, but it hadn't split internally, so I was just able to weld it up and throw it back in. So
what was this on, a 636?
No, it was a Triumph, so 675.
Oh, really?
Street triple, yeah. So I changed the Triumph probably in 14, maybe something like that, 15.
They're a good stunt bike. Like, you don't see too many of them around for stunting. So are they a good stunt bike?
You see a good few in Europe. They were getting pretty popular when I got one. The frames are a little bit weak. They've got pretty much the cause of that problem is a bit of a design flaw on Triumph's part. So on the left hand side, normally you've got your frame comes down the outside of the engine and bolts into your engine mounts, and that's where we normally take our crash cages off, like your bolting point. So on the left hand side, the frame comes on the outside of the engine. On the right hand side, it comes on the inside of the engine. So the aluminium of the engine is the first thing to take the impact from the cage if you do fall. So bit of a design flaw. Normally if people make steel frames, they come to the outside of it again, or what I ended up doing is making a different style of cage that takes the pressure away from there, and it had like a sacrificial plate in between the two mounts that takes the impact and bends the plate instead of busting your motor.
Wow.
But I ended up having to make that in Poland.
Yeah, okay.
And buying an engine in Poland. So
for that competition.
So I bust the engine in just after the qualification run. I didn't actually qualify, so I think I was one place off qualification. So I ended up, one of the guys that was at the competition rides the same bike, and he had another engine, but he was way up in North Poland. So he drove back the next day and then shipped the engine down to me, and I changed it in some guy's back garage, and in Poland, where we probably had one guy that spoke English there. The rest of them hadn't got a clue. But it all got easier once you started drinking. They all just understood then.
Chip in.
Yeah.
Hey, what a journey.
Yeah.
Seriously, that's a big journey, hey?
Yeah, well, that was only the start of it. I think I ended up putting the engine in and then driving directly to Czech Republic for another one. Yep. And then bust my cage there. And then after that competition, drove from Czech Republic straight through Poland back up to the guy who sold me the engine, and stayed with him for a week and rode with him, and he made me a new cage for the bike. And then we went to a competition in North Poland, and I think I got into the practice, probably 5 minutes into the practice, I flipped a stoppie, and something happened. The bike wasn't running right, and I thought it was the cam sensor had taken a bit of the throttle position sensor had taken a knock of the frame. So I pulled it off and took the sensor off, which I shouldn't have, and then they're set from factory, and couldn't find another sensor, so that was pretty much me out of that competition again. And it turned out it was actually just a really simple problem, that the throttle bodies had come out of the rubber mounts, and I didn't take the time and look. I just whipped it all off, been doing stuff in haste, and so ended up went back to that Polish guy after that competition again, and got a new set of throttle bodies, and headed to Germany to do German Stunt Days, which was like not so much a competition, more so like a week-long sort of event. People come like on the Tuesday and just camp out at this massive abandoned runway and just go mental, just do whatever they want. And then Friday and Saturday they open to the public and they do a big show. So went to there, and Josh and Monty had actually come over from England to that competition as well, but when I got out on the bike it still wasn't running right, and probably spent a day in a field beside an airfield pulling all the stuff off my original motor and swapping over and changing on the new motor. And eventually we got it going. We had to manually set the throttle position sensor while it was running. It kept dying out at like 6,000 RPM. So, but we got it going, and we got two good days riding there. And that's probably when I decided that, because I was supposed to have 2 weeks off in Poland and then head back over to East Poland for another competition, and then go up to Lithuania for a competition called Ghetto Games, which I'm raging I didn't end up going for it, because it's like a freestyle festival. So you got freestyle soccer, basketball, skateboards, inline skates, stunt riding, and it's just like they take over I think it's Vilnius in Lithuania, Latvia or Lithuania, I can't remember. But they basically take over the city and run all this like freestyle festival. So it looked awesome, and
that's so cool.
Yeah, but I kind of pulled the pin and went home, and then I should have actually, because my partner was supposed to fly over to Lithuania to meet me, and then we drive back, and I should have ended up just flew home for 2 weeks and took a bit of a breather, and then flew back, left the van in Poland or something, and go on. But I ended up coming back 2 months into it, and then went back over to the British Stunt Championship probably like 2 weeks after that, because kind of had felt bad. I was supposed to do it on the way back, and I came back too early, so I was trying to promote the show for the Irish Motorbike Show for the following year. So I ended up heading back over to Scotland and driving down with one of my mates, Graham, from Scotland, and competing in that. And then back home, done one more competition at home, and then we sold everything and made the move.
Wow. Like looking back at that now, does that seem like a bit like coming to Australia, where you've probably travelled a similar distance, but you'd be in different states? Does that just seem unrealistic now? Like thinking that you've travelled to all these places to do that? Does it seem a bit unrealistic? Like not unrealistic, but does it seem like a bit of a dream? Like that you've been and been to all these places doing this? Yeah, I
still think like, what was I thinking? Like, I suppose because I had massive anxiety back at home, where quitting my job. It's a bit different here. Like you see people job hop here even when they're in their 50s and 60s. Like it's because you'll always get another job, or even moving house. Like it's a completely different mentality at home. If you're in a full-time job, you would not dare do anything to jeopardize that, because it's so hard to get into another job, especially if it's like an engineering job or something. Like the criteria, or not the criteria is so hard, but there's that many people trying to get into them jobs. Like they were pushing engineering degrees for years, like when we were in school, and then all of a sudden you've got a massive amount of engineers, and you've no work. So like probably the same as here, where they sort of push the graduates and the uni students, and then now they're back pushing the trades and stuff as well. But to quit my job and head off on my own, I think heading off on my own was the biggest sort of thing, because anything that happens, you've got to deal with it on your own in places that people don't speak English. So
it's huge.
It was good. It was like once I got on that boat, the first boat, it just started to disappear, and then you'd get in situations and stuff like that, but you overcome.
So when your car broke down that time, like when you did the turbo?
Yeah. That was before I left, actually. That was in Ireland.
Oh, that's still okay.
Yeah,
cool.
So that was probably maybe 2 months before I left.
Yep.
Then that was kind of like, do I pull the pin or do I try and get a refurbished turbo and stuff? But it left at like when I was driving across, like on the route to Europe, or to say Poland, like the van would go into limp home mode every couple of 100 k's, and you'd
really,
yeah. So like when it used to happen back at home, I'd pull over, I'd stop, and I'd turn it back on, and I'd go. When I was in Europe, I was on the autobahn, so I just put the clutch in, turn it off, back on again, and away you go. Don't even stop.
Yeah.
But on the way home, like, it was happening every half an hour, and it would happen 5 times, 6 times in a row, and you'd be praying that it wouldn't keep going, like. So yeah, so it was a bit of a it was all right. I kind of had a fair idea it'd make it, but if it broke down fully there, like, I don't know what way you'd go. It just cost you a lot of money to get out of the situation, like. So
yep, yeah, that's the thing. I think anywhere sort of thing, if you're away from home, like, you can get out of things, but it just ends up costing you a lot more than what it would have around your local area.
Yeah. Plus, I thought I lost my van on the way over, coming out of France, heading for Belgium.
How? Why?
Bit of a... Yeah, looking back, it's a funny story now. Like, I don't know how I done it, but when I was driving from France up to Belgium, it was really coming down. It was probably like 11, 12 o'clock at night, and I was trying to get to Brussels, and the van was acting up and heavy rain. So I was like, right, I'll just pull into some of these big truck stops, and I'll sleep there for the night, and then I'll head to the hostel the next morning. So I pulled into this truck stop, and they're driving on the right hand side of the road, and I'm in a right-hand drive van. So you're on the opposite side, and pulled into this truck stop, and this massive one, and jumped in the back of the van and went to sleep. And then the next morning, jumped out and went into the supermarket or the shop, Servo, to get a shower. So they're all pretty well set up for truckies and stuff there, like the big truck stops here. Yep. And the roadhouses. The showers weren't working, so some guy in the shop tells me, "Oh, go up to the restaurant, and there's showers there." Well, I thought he said there were showers there, and because no one's speaking English. So I went up to the restaurant, and I asked the woman up there, and she was like, "Oh, go down the stairs, and there's showers there." So I was like, "Right, okay." So I walked down the stairs, and there's no showers there. So I was like, I'll leave it. I'll go on to the hostel, and I'll sort myself out there. So I walked out, and I looked at the car park, and the van's gone. And like, I had stickers all over the side of it, like, because I got a fair bit of sponsorship back from home. So I put all the names on the side of the van, and I stood for probably about 5 to 10 minutes looking at, trying to retrace my steps, and I was like, the car park, yeah, that's the car park, there's the shop. I definitely came out of there, went in there, trying to retrace my steps, and I was like, van's gone. And then I started getting paranoid that when I got out of the van, I thought somebody at the shop was looking at me, and then I was like, I had a spare key in the side pocket of the van, so if I lost my main keys while I was in Poland, I could break the window and use the spare key, and at least I could still drive home and whatever. And so I had my spare keys in there, and I had my wallet, and my passport was in the van. And I was like, somebody's after robbing the van. I need to report it quick before they get off the motorway and whatever. So I went into the supermarket and tried to explain to the non-English speaking person that my van was robbed, and he rings the police, and the police are talking to him on the phone, and they asked me where I went, and I said I came out of the van, into the shop, up to the restaurant, back down, and it was gone, like 3 minutes max. And they kept asking me about this restaurant. Like, they asked me like 3 times, and I was like, I was only there for like 2 or 3 minutes. That was it. And what I didn't realize, and I don't know how I didn't see it, is the restaurant is actually a flyover over the motorway. And so I had walked into one shop, and what the guy was saying in French was that the showers were broken in this shop, so he used the identical shop on the opposite side of the motorway. So it's 2 servos, same company, but they're absolutely carbon copies. And then the flyover is actually the restaurant. So I had walked into one shop, up to the restaurant, across the flyover, down to the other shop, walked out, thinking my van was gone. And like, it was uncanny. Like, everything was exactly the same. The gardens were the same, the curbing was the same, where the coffee machine was in the shop was the same. Yeah. And the only reason I kind of realised is a truckie had come across to do the same thing, and he asked me where I was going, and I said I was going to Brussels, and he was like, "Oh, your canionette is on the opposite side of the motorway." So, and then it dawned on me, and like, I came out and I looked up, and there's this massive flyover with massive lettering saying restaurant, and I was like, how I didn't figure it out. I didn't see it the night before because it was coming down, and it was pretty dark. So, but yeah.
Oh, that would have been stressful though.
Not too bad at the time. I was probably more stressed afterwards, and just thinking like, idiot. So I instantly rang my mate back at home and told him the story and had a bit of a laugh about it. But yeah,
that's one of the ones you got to tell someone quickly.
Yeah,
you got to get it out of your system.
Yeah. But,
wow.
Yeah.
Oh, imagine losing all that stuff too on your,
Yeah.
passport.
I think I still had my wallet. So I was confident I'd get home. If the bike was gone and the van was gone, yeah, what about it then? At least you could still get home, and you'd I don't know, you'd be able to get a temporary passport or something.
Figure it out. Yeah, definitely. When you came to Australia, how long was it before you bought a stunt bike?
Probably about maybe about 8 months. So yeah, I was saying before, like, it was I thought it was going to be a lot easier to jump into a job. And it's definitely a lot more about the contacts that you know, or the contacts you have than what you can do, I suppose. Because a lot of people I would have known, like my brother and our friends over here, would all be in the construction trade, and I was trying to get into one engineering and then fabrication. So, I ended up we were down to like our last $100 at one stage, and then I ended up getting into a job in Kerperu in a fab shop, and held that for probably 8 months or a year, and that sort of set me up. But so it took me a little while to get on my feet, and we were living in my brother's house, and then we moved into a rental and stuff. But it's probably about 8 months before I got the stunt bike.
And how was the scene when you did arrive? How was it?
When I come over first, I'd sort of prepped, or not prepped, but I contacted a few local guys. Bobby Stevens, who does a lot of did do a lot of the media stuff, like the photography and stuff for us. I'd hit him up the year before I was coming over, said, I'm heading over to Australia, I want to see what the scene is like, and yada yada. And so he brought me out for the first, brought me out to the practice spot with no bike, like just to say hello and chat to the guys. And yeah, it was cool. Different to the scene back at home and Europe. Would have been a lot of straight line stuff, fast straight line stuff, a lot of supermotos, not all fast, but not so many people doing circles and combos and stuff like that. So but it was good. Yeah. So
and like progress, was it better here or was it worse or just different?
I was knocked back. It was probably close to like a year and a half I was off the bike from when I sold before we left until I got a bike here. So I was on and then I was going from a Triumph to a 636. So took me some tricks I got back in straight away. Some tricks just took me a long time to get back, and still trying to get back to some tricks that I was able to do back then. I don't know whether that's just I'm getting old or but progress was slow at start, but it was okay. There's not I suppose there wasn't as many riders doing the same sort of high level stuff that I would have been used to back in Ireland and Europe, so there wasn't as many guys to feed off, but at the same way they were doing a lot of stuff that I wouldn't have done before, like the straight line stuff. So started to get back into doing straight line, faster straight line stuff when I come over here, which is good because that's the way the scene is going. It started off back in the day was just everything was fast, aggressive, but all straight and not much technical stuff. And then it changed to like slow technical wheelies, circles, which is really good, but it's kind of boring to watch after a while. And then probably when we started running the competitions and the European guys come over, it was just a mix of both. It was all the technical stuff, but at fast speed. And it's evolved like that now. Like now you see guys out in competitions and they're doing circle wheelies. They're not doing circle wheelies in the center of the arena. They're doing circle wheelies at speed, and they're clipping each barrier, which is between probably 2 feet away from the spectators, and they're coming around big fast wide circles, and then they dip it and take off straight, and everything's technical but fast and aggressive. So it was good to get back into the straight line stuff, and that's sort of where I'm aiming now is the fast aggressive riding, because it's good fun and it's good to watch. Like,
yeah, it's exciting, isn't it?
Yeah,
Definitely exciting.
Yeah.
Is the biggest trouble with it trying to find practice area?
Oh yeah, 100%.
That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Trying to find a spot that's good enough to ride, or not good enough to ride, but that's flat and consistent. And like concrete is normally inconsistent; it changes from one pad to the next. Like trying to find a bitumen spot is the best. But yeah, and away from the public where you're not annoying people, and away from the police where they're not worrying about you, and somewhere where like the owners will let you in. So yeah, it's tough. Yeah,
tough part, eh?
Yeah, I think the good scene, and the way we try to do it at home as well, like is well, I got like the van wrapped here now, and I've all the bikes wrapped, and I just try to show them that it's not a hoon thing. It's you're actually a professional out training. You're not just practicing, you're training, and you do shows and you do competitions and stuff like that, and just trying to make it get them to understand that it's a professional thing, and you're not just out to damage property, like, or
because that's one thing, like with your businesses with it is professional. Like you look at your fan, you look at everything that you do, it comes across so professional. Hey,
yeah, that's good that it portrays that. Like I definitely think that's a big thing, and the way you condone yourself with organisers and with spectators and stuff, and it has to be professional. Like,
where do you see the sport going here?
Pardon? Where
do you see the sport going here?
It's a hard one to call. Like I do see potential in it. There's a lot more potential as a professional sport over here than there would be at home. I think events are more inclined to want. First of all, there's way more events. There's more avenues to go down. There's regular events. I think they have money to get this sort of thing, to get these sort of live action, and people here haven't seen it really. They've seen the big stuff on the tracks and whatever like that, but a lot of places haven't seen, or they think that they can't take that sort of sport into a smaller area. Like I done a show in Walca in 2 years ago, so 19, and it was amazing. Like it was supposed to be a massive festival, and the festival got the guy went bankrupt probably like 5-6 weeks before the.
Is this the one that's going to have a hill climb and flat track in it?
Freak show festival.
Yeah.
So that looked absolutely amazing, like a hill climb and a speedway and flat track and all like that. And so then the organizer rang me about 6 weeks before it and said that he'd gone into liquidation, and I was actually, I felt really bad for him, and then he said to contact the guys down in the Walca Royal Hotel, and he said they were still thinking of doing something. So I rang Brad down there, and he put me on to the council, and he said, yeah, we still want to do something, and we done a deal so I could still go down. Sussed out, I went on Google Maps and tried to suss out a few places in the town that would be suitable, and we got it going, and they had such a task ahead of them. Like they had 4 weeks to organise this festival, and then it was right around the time of the bushfires. So when we were driving down, I think the town was surrounded on 3 sides with fires, and so a lot of people couldn't get up from the south. A good few people made the long trip around just to support it, but turned out to be one of the best festivals, or one of the best events I've been to. Like it was 3 days of good times. Met a lot of friends down there, and we ended up invited ourselves to Brad's daughter's wedding.
Wow.
So I was meant to go back down there last year, and then it was cancelled just when the COVID piked up there with New South Wales. And we're back down there this year, 21. So
when's that going to be?
November.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. So about the same time as what they were going to have for the first initiation.
They keep it. They call it the Walca motorcycle rally now. So, but it's such a nice town. I think is because I haven't seen that sort of small town mentality too much here. Like we haven't toured that much around Australia. We've stayed in Brisbane, and we've been down to Melbourne to see Orla's sister and fiance a few times, but and the only time I've been touring around, I've been working or doing shows. So we got to drive down, and everyone was waving when I was driving through the town. It's like, this is like being back in like my hometown, back at home. Like, so the van adds a lot to that. I suppose you see the big
big van.
rig, like, so yeah.
And it looks, like we were saying before, it looks good. It's it looks very professional. There's something coming through. You think like a race team's coming into town or something.
Yeah.
That is a beautiful town, Walker.
Yeah, it's awesome. And that Walker Royal Hotel, I fell in love with that. Like Brad had done such an amazing job in it. Like he's basically got all the scrap of motorbikes parts all over the years, and he's built all these statues at the back, and he's made like this little this biker beer garden and stuff like that. And yeah, it was really good.
Because they support obviously motorcycle. Like it's linked to probably one of Australia's greatest roads, which is the Oxley Highway.
Yeah.
And they support motorcycling supports the town so much.
Yep.
People coming through that town always, you know. So
yeah,
good spot.
Yeah, I'd actually Brad was telling us a story about because obviously the bushfires had just come through there, and again, this is all so foreign to us. Like we live in a wet country. Like you couldn't light a bushfire with a can of petrol. Like, but I think maybe like 3 or 4 days beforehand, he had a property that he had sold a few years ago, but he'd still got some trucks out there and some stuff. He used to maintain the property for a guy down in Sydney, and he was out there, and him and the fireys were on the land trying to fight the fire, and they said we need to go. Like there's only one access way out of the property, and he was like, "Nah, I'm going to stay." And if it gets too bad, like he said he's going to park his truck in the middle of the paddock and fill bags of water. And if it got too bad, he'd jump in around the bags of water, and they'd be the first thing to melt to douse him and cool him down. And I was like, that is the craziest thing I have ever heard. He just said it like it was, yeah, sure, that's what I'll do. That'll be fine. Wow. And he was fighting the fire with like he had a big tank and he had a bucket, and the bucket couldn't fit underneath the tap at the bottom of it, so he drilled a hole in the top of the tank, and then that'd spill out into the bucket, and he'd run and douse a log with a bucket of water and then run back, and by the time he come back the log would be on fire again. And this was just so crazy to me, like. And I when we were leaving there, I had said to him like, whenever you're going to go out and rebuild, like let me know. I was so keen to take like a month or 6 weeks off work and just come down and camp out at the place and help him rebuild it. Like it was it would have been such an awesome project. But
because that's proper Australia. You know, that's I think that's such an Australian way, you know. You would have had a good experience, I think, there.
I think so, yeah. But we had planned actually to go down for the show in November 20 and take like 2 weeks and spend a few days around Walca and then head down to Bathurst. I've got a mate down there who's actually a park ranger who gets dropped into the centre of the fires with his pick-hoe and a chainsaw, and so he's got some good stories. And then we were going to go down to Sydney and see some mates there and then come back up, but that all got sort of pushed to the wayside when the COVID thing piped up.
Yeah, that's been definitely a pretty difficult situation, hasn't it? You know, with a lot of things. Yeah. Do you do any enduro riding now? Like you're saying, you did that bit there. Do you do anything now in Australia?
I've done 2 events here out in Arachula. Just on I think it was on a mate's CRF 450. Yep. But had planned to get into more of it. I actually had an idea this year of trying to go for the Fink, but not as like a competitive. It was actually from I watched I think it was your initial podcast with Brian Farrow and him talking about doing it with the Harley, and I thought it'd be a cool thing to get maybe a team of like 5 or 6 guys together and not go to be competitive, just go to finish it and to have a bit of fun along the way and a few beers in the evening and then do it. But I'm struggling to find guys to do it. I think I'm seriously underestimating it, but I actually haven't looked that much into it, into the intensity of it. But
what would you do it on?
When I was listening to Brian and talking about the Harley, I was thinking it'd be cool to do it on one of them new FTR 12s, the Indians. Mm-hmm. But obviously not. It'd be pretty hard to go and buy one and do it. It'd be a pretty costly bike to do it on. I don't know. Probably something like a Tenere or something like that. Like maybe.
Yep.
I don't know. It's a pretty foreign sort of area for me. Yeah, maybe I'm biting off more than I can chew, looking to go to that.
There a couple of guys. I just sold one of my bikes 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And one of the guys I sold it to has a group of them. They're going out for the event just as an adventure.
Yeah.
going to go out, like I had an adventure bike, so they're going to go here along the way.
Yeah.
Like,
that would be pretty
I shouldn't have sold that to you, because that would be unreal. Like,
what was it?
I had a Triumph Tiger 800 XCX.
I loved it.
It was good.
Yeah.
It was really good.
Yeah.
It was just time. I'd had it for bit over 3 years, I think.
Yeah.
And done everything that I ever wanted to probably do on it.
Mm-hmm.
And but I miss it a lot. It's awesome, but I'll get something else along the way that's an adventure bike.
Such a nice engine though, them
Great
triples.
motor.
Like I fell in love with the street triples, and a mate of ours, Stewie, he had a Tiger as well, and we done a trip from Dayborough up to Kenilworth off road.
Oh, yeah,
and I was on I had a GS 650 Dakar for a little while over here that I was driving to and from work, and we went off road and that, and it was pretty good.
It's nice up there.
Yeah, it's lovely. Yeah, Kenilworth's is pretty cool. Yeah, but
no, the triple motors, it is like, the 675 motor when it came was an absolute game changer.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of 1050 triples, and the 1050 is awesome.
Yeah.
Only disappointment I do have is they should have made a Daytona 1050.
Yeah,
I think that would have been really cool, because they did the Daytona 675.
Yeah.
To see a superbike in the 1050 or a larger capacity would have been really cool to see.
Well, they've got a 790 now as well, don't they? Or
765. Yeah. Which is the base of the Moto 2 motor.
Yeah.
Which is same deal, really good package. But
they're when we were asking about the Triumph as a stunt bike, I think the frame and the design of the engine and frame is probably the only drawback I could really see with them. Like everything else is they're a little bit of a shorter bike, but the engine is just so much fun. There's so much torque out of it, and the sound just lights me up. Yeah.
No, they're beautiful. Definitely a cool
and they've set
thing.
the way. Like, you've got your MT-09s and stuff now. I've just came out after them, and the sevens, the sevens are parallel twin. But
what's your drift bike?
It's K5 GSXR 1000.
Oh, the last of the good ones.
Yeah. The aggressive
they're
ones.
all good, but they had a killer motor.
Yeah, so that came from a drag racer that I was doing a bit of work for. So it was his spare bike, and I was making a set of Sidewinder headers for his drag bike. So pretty much he wanted to drop the front and put a dry sump on it, so you want to get the bike as low as you could to the ground. So I ended up making him a set of oversized headers for the K5, and used the K5 I bought of him as a jig. So it was pretty cool. It was my first big exhaust project over here, and done silly but tried to make a 4-into-1 merger myself, which it was fine, but just a lot of work. Isn't
it amazing, like exhaust work, how much goes into it? Hey, like just things like, for my old race bike, my best friend Jono, he put so much time into making this custom pipe setup for me. And I remember just looking at the real little things, like heat coming through here. This radius here, so much. Hey.
Yeah, there's if you can't bend the pipes as well, if you haven't got a mandrel bender, it's you're going into like heavy time and doing pipe cuts and stuff, and if you haven't got a consistent way of chopping angles to the correct angle that you want, or bends to the correct angle that you want, you have to go down the lines of pie cuts, and pie cuts look absolutely amazing, but they're very time consuming. It turned out pretty good. I ended up having to change it. We designed it and made it all fit the bike, and then when he put it on his, it wouldn't fit. And the design I copied was an American design that they don't run a coolant system. And this is what he said to me. I was like, what do you mean they don't run a coolant system? Because some of these drag bikes, to shift as much weight as possible, they don't run a radiator or an oil cooler, and they just run the exhaust as close to the head as possible, and then they do one run, and then they kill it as soon as they get to the end, and freewheel it back, tow it back.
Wow.
So I ended up having to chop it apart and reroute two of the headers. But
that's so, I understand it, but just not something you'd ever have to think of.
You'd
think.
Yeah. But I bought a K5, an old spare bike of him, and then started to set that up as a drift bike. So
how's that go?
Yeah, it goes pretty good. Had some issues with the when I got it first, the tank was rusted in pieces. The pump had flakes of rust everywhere, and like the whole sump of the pump was completely full with rust.
Wow.
So I pulled that all apart, chopped the top of the tank off, and blasted the inside of it, and then fabricated up like a flat top tank. Put the pump back in, and it ran well for a while, and then we started getting some issues where it would lean out under load. So I think I was actually up in Nambour doing a show. Brian Farrow and the team were up there as well, and just whenever I'd power skid off the start, and then you get up through the revs, and it'd start leaning out, and turned out it was just it kept rusting out the inside the tank and sucking up particles into the pump, and brought down to the guys in Pro Cycle Dyno, and they put a new pump in it, and then the same issue happened within probably a couple of days, and then we ended up changing out the tank, and then she's ran really well since. So it's been it's good. It's been interesting. I brought it down to Port Macquarie to a drift event for its kind of debut. Hadn't really had much of a run on it, and the plan was to drift the track, possibly alongside a drift car in Port Macquarie. Yep. But hadn't got around to setting up suspension, and it was so sketchy. Like it would either low side and spit you off, or it would just grip and high side you off. So
wow.
Yeah, it was fairly volatile, but it was fine for like straight line stuff where you got the main straight in the track. You could do big fast side to side snake ones and try and clip the white lines on the edge, but for consistent drifting around the corners, it was pretty hard.
So what do you do to make it a drift bike? Swing arm extension?
Yeah, I got the smallest extension I could find. I was going to fabricate or manufacture some myself, and then I found a cheap set over in Perth. So talked to a few of the French guys, a guy called Reggie Rual. I don't know if that's the right pronunciation, but anyway, he judged for us the first year in Dublin, and he runs the French Drift Championship, the bike championship. I don't think it's still running now, but they had a championship there for a while, and they normally run it on smaller kind of go-kart tracks and tandem bike on bike, that sort of stuff. It's pretty cool to watch.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
So I chatted to him, and he was saying like keep it like no more than 100 mil extension, because you see with the massive big extensions, then you're going to lose your speed. Like it spins up too easily, and I wanted it to be a fast, aggressive looking bike, but I just wanted it to be a bit more predictable than a standard length. But yeah, so pretty much just a bit of an extension, and I went up to probably like a 50 tooth sprocket, 54 tooth sprocket, and that's pretty much it. Just run a cage and away you go.
And like, is it a crappy tyre? Like what?
No,
heaps of pressure or anything like that?
Yeah, like on the stunt bikes, like we used to start at, when we were starting stunting, a lot of people would run flat tires, like run 5, 10, 15 psi.
Yep.
And that's fine to get straight line wheelies and get rid of the side to side sort of balance issue. But when you start turning in circles, it always wants to put you back onto the center of the tire. So we started 30, and it took us longer to get to circles, but when you did, you weren't worried about it pushing back into the center, and then you could still drift, you could still do burnouts. You didn't have a flat tire for that sort of stuff. But then probably maybe shortly after we started doing circles, then a lot of the older guys were running higher pressure. So I think I went to 60 pound of pressure, and I've probably stuck at that until recently.
Really?
Yeah, and it makes like the fast wide stuff, it makes it really, really good, because you can bank the bike over on the sidewall, edge wall of the tire, and you can just keep feeding throttle, and it's not going to give. And then
consistent.
Yeah, and then with drifting, it's pretty consistent as well. Like, but tires, we find running good tires is just the best, because for drifting you want to you don't want it to be sketchy, you don't want it to be skatey, you want it to be predictable, feelable, and you just push it beyond that limit. So like back when we were starting, like the Michelin Pilot road ones were pretty good. Then they started getting scarce, so then we went to road 2s, road 3s. We had a Bridgestone sponsorship back at home, from a local garage, and then over here I was just running whatever I could find for a while, and then I've got backing from Shinko now, so I run Shinkos in Everton, and they're awesome. Like they're a little bit pointier on the stunt bike, so that's when I went back down to probably 30-40 pound of pressure in the back.
Yep.
Just a little bit more wavy.
The profile's a bit
higher in the centre. Yeah.
Yep.
Same size, but just seems to be different to say a Michelin or a Bridgestone. But once I dropped it down, it's pretty good, and they feel pretty predictable out along the edges. But you want to have that feel. So I think the drifting is all about just being as smooth as you can, and having the space to be able to push the bike out to the edge, like not being restricted. So if you're in a tight space, then you have to be sort of choppy on the throttle because you can't go that far. You can't let it slide out. But yeah, it's I'm only starting to get it dialed in a bit now. Like I've had 2 practice days out of Queensland Raceway there last week and 2 weeks before that. The first one was a little bit I was probably too aggressive on the front brakes, trying to hold it back too much to get around the corners instead of like, because I'm still sort of on the racing line.
Yep.
Whereas the last day, Josh, who normally does the photos for me, he's got a fair bit of experience in car drifting, so he was sort of spotting for me and saying, right, instead of taking that line there, take it wider, flick it out to the end and do a big flick to flick back to the other side to take the next left-hander. But it's trying to, like, you need a little bit of front brake just to keep everything under control and sort of consistent and keep the back wheel moving or spinning. If you release the front brake altogether, it'll just run out of legs. And I put a quick shifter on it recently to try and start pulling gears mid corner to sort of contradict that.
Yep.
But I think just a little bit of front brake, but then sort of on that transfer where you're going from side to side, your danger parts in the center of your tire, so you're trying to like go from full bank right to full bank left. But it's not bad. I've got the lock stops cut off, so you got a bit of extra lock.
Yep.
I think that's probably the biggest necessity on them.
It looks crazy.
Yeah.
Like, it looks cool.
Yeah.
Like, I must say, it looks really cool.
The first day I was out, like, because this is the first time I've had a big track to play with where there's room to let it use its legs, like. And inside my helmet, I was like, this is absolutely mental. Like, I'm coming around the corner and pushing towards the end, and it felt really fast. And then I looked back at the footage and I was like, that looks crap. It's like really slow.
Wow.
But then that's the same as, like, everyone's critical of their own stuff. But the last day, last week when I went out, it was definitely a hell of a lot better. I was supposed to have a guy from Coomer there, Scott Townsend, to come out and do drone. He done the first day with the drone footage, and he was going to come down the second day, and then his alternator busted itself on the way down. So, but I got a bit on board and got a bit of side track footage, and
yep.
Josh has got some good photos as well. But yeah, I'd like to push that more, and again, it's just getting somewhere to use it, to practice it. Like,
yep.
It's all seat time, because if you go out, the only time I've really had it out has been at shows, and you just go out and you have to put on a big show straight away and you get no practice time, and
just straight into it.
Yeah, and that's probably the dangerous sort of side as well. Like, if you push stuff beyond where you haven't had the seat time to practice it, it can get sketchy. But
where do you see it going? Do you see that being, like, if you're doing it, more people are going to be doing it? Do you see that thing being like a series here or something as well, maybe? Like, I don't know. Like, my main goal for that is to, like, I want to get it in alongside these big events, because there's nobody else that's really done proper drifting on track, and especially alongside a car. Like, Lukey Luke down in Melbourne has done a bit. Because you've seen the BM.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. And there's a French guy who's a BMW sort of like a test pilot, and he's on the 1,000 hours back in France. Like, and he's probably the only guy I've seen worldwide to do proper full-on drifting on track.
Yeah.
I've seen plenty of like burnouts and stuff like that, but to be able to take on a track, and I think the biggest challenge with it is entering the corner at speed, and that's what I found the last time. The Gixxer is great, but it has a soft spot down low. So if you're coming into a corner and you're backing down third gear, second gear, and you try and hit it in the low ends, like, it sort of bogs, and that's exactly where you don't want it to bog, because it's just going to high side you off. You want it to spin, and then you need to attack it. So I actually talked to Fred at Pro Cycle Dyno, so we're going to Don't want to take it in next week and put a Woolwich tune on it.
Yep.
And try and get that sorted out down low. And after that, I came back and I was chatting to Josh and a few other guys, and now I'm thinking, like, initially I wanted to get a Big Bang R1 for a drift bike. I seen Bill Dixon in the States on it, and it just looks so aggressive, and them cross-plane engines are torquey. So now I'm sort of, I'll try this one as long as I can, and if a Big Bang comes up cheap or crashed or something like that, I might jump on that. Because like through the corners and feeding it out of the corners is predictable. But if you want to come in, especially the main goal for the drift bike is to put it alongside a drift car and go tandem and be able and be able to keep up with a drift car. Like whatever about if you're able to keep the corner speed, I don't know, but being able to pull out off the corner, pull gears while you're still drifting and tag behind them, and then being able to scrub enough speed coming into a corner, because obviously a drift car can pull the handbrake and scrub speed going sideways and can probably just power on at whatever 60 k's an hour. You try and lock a bike up sideways and try and scrub speed like that, you're just going to high side straight away. So you kind of have to back it in, scrub speed that way, and then while you're leant over, start hitting it. But if you've got a bog down low, it's going to throw you 100% wrong time to have.
So is that what you do? You come in, you're coming in, like obviously a whole lot of rear brake.
Yep.
That's the plan, and then hopefully not bog, and then
at the minute, because I got that bog, the last day I was out, I kind of focused on coming backwards into the chicane, doing a 180. Most of the boys when they're drifting, say on the stunt bikes, will start off with a 180 and then they feed it out of that. So I was coming on the back chicane of Queensland Raceway, middle of the chicane, do a 180, second gear, just a very light bit of front brake, and hit it while it's over on the sidewall of the tyre, and then just feed it out to the outside of the corner, and then give it another big flick, and then back the other way, and then take the next two left-hand corners.
Yeah.
But ideally, I was trying to come in to the chicane from the straight the 2 weeks beforehand, and I just had to scrub too much speed. I was trying to hit it in third gear, so I'd have lots of legs to get through the corner and put out a lot of smoke.
Yeah.
But you just have to scrub too much speed, and then you end up using too much front brake to engage it. But if you come in and you back in and try and hit it while it's sideways coming into the corner, I think that's the more predictable way to do it. But
very cool.
I ended up washing out on the chicane the first weekend. I came through and I went to flick it to the opposite side and just washed the front out and landed on my head. But it's fun. Like it is a lot of fun. It scares the hell out of me while you're coming through and you're powering on and you want it to slide towards the outside of that corner, but you're always watching the grass and the rumble strips and I'm having a couple of issues with the quick shifter where it's if I put the sensitivity too high, it's giving me false shifts. So if you're coming out halfway through the corner, then it bogs down, or it kills the time kills the ignition for whatever 75 milliseconds. Like that's enough to put you into the grass, I suppose.
Pretty quickly.
Yeah. But
I can't wait to see it in real life.
Yeah, okay. I had it at Lakeside there for the Father's Day just last year. It was really good. It put on a big show there, and just along the main straight and then around the back end, and it was pretty cool. Like, yeah.
I just can't fathom how you like. It's the same process as the dirt bike.
Yeah.
Like it can be done because you see it on a dirt bike happening, I guess.
Yeah.
But just with all that grip, just blows me away how it's done.
Yeah.
You know?
That's why I've seen a few boys back in the UK and they've got 600cc drift bikes, and it doesn't really. I don't think it's okay for small areas and stuff like that, but I wanted to put on a big spectacle. I wanted to be coming sideways out of a corner, billowing smoke off the back, and being able to fill the straight. That's what it's built for. Like, so that's kind of why the K5 appealed to me.
Yep.
And it's only now when I'm getting some proper seat time on track that I'm seeing, right, this is where I'm lacking, this is where it's good. So, but it's getting that track time. It's not many people want to think it's too dangerous, I suppose. And that's why I don't know if I see it being a series here. I can see it if we got the opportunity, if we could get in places and people to take a punt on it, I think it could put on a really good show, like a car versus bike show. I think it'd be awesome.
Be awesome.
Yeah. Definitely. I don't think they've really touched on that over here. And the same with the stunt bike, like the close proximity stunt riding with a drift car or something is good. And we've done it back in Ireland with some stunt coordinators, like the guys that do the stunt car driving. So it looks good, like if it's coordinated.
So we got Walker for later in the year, November. Yep. What else can we see from you this year, mate?
Should be down in Springwood, actually, just next door here, probably in the next month or so, for Ultimate Kawasaki Bike Night. It does be pretty good. It pulls in a big crowd, so Pete clears the front area where he normally has the bikes and gives me that, and we try and put on a big show in there. No limits on burnouts and smoke and stuff there. So then down at Vogue, probably they run a car show there once a month. So I had my first one there 1 week ago with them. And hopefully be back now for the next one or maybe the one after that. There's a lot of inquiries out. Everyone's still pretty apprehensive with the whole situation and stuff, and a lot of councils and stuff are not wanting to commit, I suppose, to stuff in case they'd have to cancel within a day's notice. But got a few different avenues happening. Like I'm working with the Circus School in Brisbane, Flipside. We done some work for them, installing some temporary dome structures for their school, and we've proposed a couple of shows where we collaborate acrobats and stunt riders and stuff like that. So there's a few different areas. I think there's a good market available in it. Like there's lots of council sort of shows and city shows where I think it could benefit. But again, it's having that weight behind your name to get them to sort of take a go on it, or just give you the time of day, I suppose.
That's the hard part, eh?
It is, yeah, and it's all about connections and who you know, and
it's like
how
a job, like you're saying about the jobs, isn't it? It's like who you know.
Yep. Yeah, and how you present it, and we always try and make the shows as like an all-rounded family sort of events. Like, so after every show, like we pull the bikes in, we get all the kids to come in and they can sit up on the bikes and get pictures with ourselves or with their parents, and sign posters and stickers. And then I've introduced my partner Orla into the show, so she does sit on and do some tandem bike stunts as well, which is people they get a shock. They don't really expect it. So she's normally on the side and then whacks on the helmet, and then she's on the bike and we're doing wheelies with her in the middle. So
nice.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
Very cool, mate. Where can people find you online?
So Instagram is DK Freestyle Oz AUS, and then Facebook just DK Freestyle, and then I have a website dkfreestyle.com. But Instagram's probably the main one, and if anyone has any sort of festivals in their town that think they could use a bit of entertainment or excitement, I'm definitely keen to spread around as much as I can.
Awesome. And definitely check out the website. It's got a lot of other detail and stuff about yourself and that on there as well. So anyone listening, make sure you check that out. So thanks for coming in, mate.
Yeah, no worries. I enjoyed it.
And we'll have to try and catch up at one of the events. I'm really keen to try and get to Walker. I wanted to do that when it first came about, the flat track thing. I was like, this would be cool to go and race. But hopefully they do something like that again.
Because that flat track thing is something that interests me as well. I was actually in with Brian. It was one day we were coming back down from the sunny coast and called in, and he had that Harley that got sent back from the States. So the one that he rode, that he flew over and built over there. Yeah. So he had it up for sale then. I was like, man, I'd love to give that a go.
Oh, it's so fun.
Yeah. And I was like, just when you were saying about the drifting, I was watching, I think it was Mitch Harwood. I think I was seeing a picture of him there recently, and it's just like he's just full lock and there's no brakes at all. Like, and I don't know how different it is to doing it on a drift bike, but I know on the drift bike, like it's like you're at full lock and you're over in the sidewall of the tire, like, and it's sketchy. I don't know how it feels like when you're on the Harley and you've got no brakes and you're over like that. Is it easier to control in dirt, or I probably can't imagine
I don't know. I haven't slid it far enough yet.
Yeah.
But to see Mitch the other week when we were out there Saturday 2 weeks ago, he looks so good. Like he's just high on the dirt, and it was just full lock up to the fence.
Because Mitch would have started. Well, I don't know if he started, but he would have been out in practicing with us when he was on the two-strokers.
Yep.
And then when he was on the Harley as well, like on the road bike. But
his progression's been good, eh?
Oh yeah. I'm actually because they've got a show next week up at Big Boys Toys.
Yeah, the Daimler.
Daimler
show. Yep.
Yeah, so I'm going to try and get up to that to see them, like because Liam Walton that rides with him as well, he would have started, or he would have been down with us in practicing in Brisbane before he moved up and went to Harley's. And Brian's a nice guy as well. Yeah,
top guy.
Yeah.
Actually, total like a good crew amongst everyone that's sort of up there.
Yeah.
And
I like
really
what he's done with the
forward
shop as well.
Yeah, pushing it forward as well, which is good. So pushing stunts forward with the Harley side. So
yeah, and it's something different as well.
Yep.
And then he's done some great things up there, like that the ladies' bike night and stuff was pretty good thing to run. So he seems to have a nice niche there. So
yeah, he does a great job, and I just need to slow him down. He's too fast on the hooligan bike, so I just don't want to get lapped again.
Because you ride as well, that don't you?
Yeah. So,
how did you go last week?
Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, it was great. I think it was the best it's been out there. Like it was a practice day, but the track was unreal. Like especially the first session. But it's just good. It's just fun, It's just proper good fun, and it's just being on a motorcycle with a group of people that are all there for the same reason, which is fun.
Because I met Dallas afterwards. He came down to the show afterwards, like,
That's right.
And he was saying he was out at, like, that guy covers some ground on like every weekend, just different events. Photographing
weekdays, weekends. Dallas does a lot.
Doesn't sleep.
No, I don't think so. So he did that day. He did the hooligan stuff with us. Then he went out to town and watched the Conor McGregor fight.
Yep.
Then he went down to you guys at Meadowbrook. Then he went out to something else over the night time. Then he went back home that night. He was out for 15 hours photoing stuff.
Yeah.
So, But thanks everyone for listening. Everyone's been subscribing over Christmas break, and that's been awesome. And we've got plenty of other good shows planned for the rest of the year. So thank you.
Good. Thanks.
Thanks, mate.